Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And today I have a very special guest joining us from Los Angeles, California, Mr. Jonathan Goldhill. So stay with us. Be right back. And we're back. Let me bring Jonathan on. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ken. Happy day to you. Happy morning.
Yeah.
Happy afternoon.
Friday.
Yeah, Friday, end of the week.
Hey, directly after this, I'm hopping in the car and heading to Nashville. Yeah.
Well, better than hopping on a plane, right?
Yeah, I don't do that. But so Jonathan, I started this show about 2.5 years ago, and I started it probably a little bit selfishly. It was to help people get unstuck. And at the time, it was probably more about helping me get unstuck. but you know, I bring people on. They come on and tell their life stories about how they've hit these obstacles in life and how they busted through them and overcame them. And so that's what this is all about. It's your life story, man.
Yeah.
So let's start with where you were born and raised.
So born and raised in New York, a suburb of New York City, about 20 miles out. And spent my first 18 years of my life in that area.
In New York?
Yes, Scarsdale, Mamaroneck, Westchester County is a affluent suburb of New York City, and not a bad place to grow up. So,
nice.
Yeah.
I keep getting people on the show here recently from New York. It's crazy. Like it's all of a sudden.
That's because there's a lot of us, Ken.
there are a lot. There's a lot. So, as a matter of fact, the other day I've only been to Manhattan like one time. I drove out there for a business meeting, but I had other stops in PA on the way back to Ohio here. And so I drove and dude, wow, what a trip.
It's a wake-up call, right? It's like, wow, all these people, all this stuff going on, and big high rises. And
And I know I was being a tourist because I FaceTimed my wife while driving down 34th Street. I'm like, this is where the Thanksgiving Day parade is. And
exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
and I almost hit a traffic cop. That was awesome.
Oh, wow. Well, you know, this is the first year in, I think, 75 years that the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade has not happened.
Can you believe it, man?
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Oh, look, we just got a note from Bill Flynn, a friend of ours.
Yeah, he's watching us over on LinkedIn. Bill, thanks for referring us, man.
Yeah.
So you grew up in the greater New York area. Did you go to college?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I did.
Okay.
I went to college. So I went to college first in Massachusetts in the beautiful, I'm being sarcastic, town of Worcester, Massachusetts, arguably the ugliest city in North America. And went to a private liberal arts college called Clark University. And then I went west, Ken. I went west to California. I checked one of the boxes on the University of California application, ended up in Santa Barbara on the beach, and I said, not going back to that little ugly city. I stayed, and I've been here pretty much ever since.
So you'd never been to California before that?
I had been to California as with my family on a cross-country trip when I was younger, like maybe 9 or 11.
Yeah.
And when I was 18, I went to California, like backpacking a Greyhound bus tour with a backpack. And I remember the AAA or I remember the AAA guide that we had, the road atlas, and the first sentence is California is not a state, it's a state of mind. And so I had that, they talk about a New York state of mind, I guess it's from a piece of music. So I had that California state of mind, and I ended up here 42 years ago.
Back to New York for a second, and you just reminded me of something, because I remember that song kept just playing through my head while I was in New York, right?
Yeah.
And
Billy Joel, New York State of Mind.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So, but the only thing I knew about New York was people got murdered and robbed and mugged a lot. Like, that's the only thing I knew. So I was expecting to get murdered or mugged. Like,
and look, you're still here.
I know, right? But I was on whatever the street. I had a meeting. It's a very affluent area, and I'm on this. I park in this parking garage, and I'm walking, and everybody was so nice.
I know.
I'm like, this is a setup, man. They're just setting me up. They know I'm from out of state. They're setting me up to drag me into an alley and mug me.
That didn't happen, did it?
People are so nice there, man. It blew me away.
I know. Well, they're not so nice. They're like, get out of my way, and kind of like, they're very direct.
They're very direct. Yeah.
But I've had the same impression of Israel. I like, but there's shootings and killings every day. Like, why would someone want to go to Israel? It sounds so dangerous. And people are like, that's the only news that you hear. So in Ohio, that's the news that you hear about New Yorkers, is like, but.
Yeah, we turn off the news and go milk cows here. So, but
yeah. Well, when I grew up, they were lighting buildings on fire in the Bronx every night. It was like wow, all these buildings were on fire, and I don't really remember why, but I assume it had to do with the living conditions. They were not too great.
Wow. So you ended up in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
Seems like I remember Johnny Carson talking about Santa Barbara all the time.
That I don't remember, but I did end up in a town later, just about 15 years ago, Calabasas, and Jimmy Durante. Do you remember Jimmy Durante? The piano player, and he always used to say at the very end of his show, "Say goodnight, Mrs. Calabash," and that was, he was referring to his wife in Calabasas. So
wow, very cool, very cool.
There's a lot of
there's my friend Jamie. She's out in your neck of the woods. So
she's texting us that Santa Barbara is gorgeous. It literally is one of the most beautiful places you've ever been. It's like paradise.
Never been there. I've never been there.
Yeah. Well.
So you ended up in Santa Barbara, going to college out there.
Yep.
What did you study in college?
So I was a sociology major.
Okay.
And I went to the University of California because I was told that if you wanted to study sociology, that the UC school system had the top sociology departments in the country, like number 2, 3, 4. I think it was after Harvard and maybe Chicago.
Yeah.
And so that was appealing. And someone just told me recently that UCSB has the number 1 sociology department in the country. So,
Wow.
So, and what was that good for? You're going to ask, like, what does someone do with a sociology degree?
Well, and my wife's on here defending Ohio.
Yeah. Hey, I've never, I never even saw any cornfields. I've seen cornfields out in eastern Long Island, but never in Ohio.
Yeah, there's lots of cornfields, but there's way more than that. It's a beautiful state.
I'm sure.
But I remember I didn't go to college, but I remember sociology in high school being one of my favorite classes. And I also remember I forget what it's called, but it's basically the teacher told one student a short story about some event, and then out in the hallway, and then another student comes out and they repeat it, and it goes around 20 times. And by the end of this thing, the story is not even close to what it was originally.
Yeah.
and that's the one thing I remember. You're like, Ken, there's a lot more to sociology than that.
I don't remember that part. I remember that in grade school as like the telephone game.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, yeah, it got to the other end of it. Yeah, but and I do remember I had a critical roommate who I've reconnected with recently, who was a Yale he was a Yale graduate and was doing his master's work. And he said, "What's sociology? That's the quantification of the obvious, isn't it?" And I said, not exactly. So, I was a student of urban sociology, which was a little bit like urban geography, was the formation of cities and how they were formed, and how wealth was distributed, and then somewhat of a student of political sociology, which is a lot around wealth distribution. That's pretty much what I remember of it. I was a progressive liberal, left-leaning individual who was also an activist in college.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I came here right after Proposition 13 passed, which is a famous Howard Jarvis tax initiative. And it cut and froze property taxes. And I was angry that as a tenant, one, I was paying so much in rent, and two, rents were going up even though property taxes were frozen. So, like, what the heck is that all about? And so I organized a tenants' rights organization and started doing a lot of research on the concentration of ownership of rental properties in our slummish college town. And so, so that was what I did for my college work.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah.
Are you still organizing these things? And
yeah, no, I stopped organizing it. Had someone told me that you could make it all the way to the presidency, maybe I would have continued. But no, no, I was pretty much of an activist and an idealist, and organized a lot of grassroots causes during my 20s, and then I grew up and went to business school and then got a real job, so to speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
it's funny how life does that to you.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, a
kinda,
little makes you when you have to be responsible and make like a rent or a car payment. Things change a little bit. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So you went back to school. You went to business school.
Yeah, 10 years later, almost. Yep.
Wow. And so you got a business degree as well.
Yeah, I really was interested in entrepreneurship. I was passionate about entrepreneurship, and I don't know how I went exactly from community organizing to being interested in entrepreneurship, but honestly, I think it was around organizing small businesses and helping small businesses, and thinking like, okay, well, I've tried to change all these disenfranchised, unempowered groups of people. Well, let me see if I can organize small businesses. And really, that's what I did. I went back to I went to the University of Southern California, USC, the Trojans, the big football school, and studied entrepreneurship. They had one of the top 10 entrepreneur programs in the country. And I studied management consulting, and then I combined the two, and I've spent the next 30 years consulting entrepreneurs. So
you own your own consulting firm.
I do. I ran a consulting firm when I first got out of school for 10 years. It was a nonprofit economic development firm. And we provided consulting or counseling, training, entrepreneurial training, and financing to small businesses. And actually, that was one of the success stories in my career. It was taking a small group of just a few of us and turning it into a group of 30 to 40 people. With we went from like nothing in assets and $100,000 annual budget to $4 million annual budget and $7 million in assets. So, yeah.
So then, but at some point you decided to start consulting. Now, when you're consulting, are you talking about what size companies are you consulting with?
So,
Startups?
back then it was startups, it was early stage, it was mom and pop,
Yeah.
family owned. Sometimes we'd get into a $2 to $10 million company
Yeah.
and help them with financing, but typically they were a little bit more sophisticated than we were. But I mean, we had 600. I counted 600 adults who went through our entrepreneur training program.
Wow.
And so, I was teaching finance and strategy, and I was teaching business planning, and then some marketing classes to them. Eventually, I taught the whole curriculum.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you're a small business, if you're a consultant and you've done small business, then you start and you work with small ones. But I
Yeah.
mean, today I only work with established companies. Usually they've been in business at least 5, usually 10 or more years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so and they're looking to grow suddenly or grow
Yeah.
significantly.
And what are some of the things that you work on with them?
So the number one and number two things that I work on is, first of all, making sure they have the right people in the organization and make sure those right people are doing the right things. So do they have a really clear job description with clear accountabilities? And are they hitting their numbers? And do they fit the values of the company? Are they a good culture fit? So we do a lot of work around the people and getting the right people in the right seats, doing the right things. And then the second thing is teaching them what I call execution habits. And these are basically the habits of getting things done,
Yeah.
setting daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, 3-year priorities and driving towards the accomplishment of those priorities and holding people accountable towards meeting those priorities. So everyone knows what their numbers are that they have to hit. Everyone can answer, did they have a good week or month or year? And so it's all about this execution. And so that's what you might call time management, priority management, task management, people management. It all kind of rolls together. So
Yeah.
those are the two primary things.
So, do you have a focus on sales at all, or is that
Yeah, so for many years, I've worked with a lot of clients on sales and marketing. For some reason, I think when clients come to me, they've already gotten most of their sales and marketing techniques or methods pretty well drilled down and refined. They're not refined, so we might do some refinement on like who's your ideal customer. That seems to be a really hot topic.
Yeah.
Like who's the one that gives you the optimal amount of income and profit, and who's the one that you find would refer to other people and is loyal. So we do some work around that, but for the most part, their sales and marketing is pretty well organized, but the wheels are kind of coming off because they don't manage their people. They don't have clear processes. Nobody does the same thing the same way twice. So it's a lot around refining their process or developing processes and improving their profitability.
So what are some of the I mean, at this point, you've made life seem like it's just been a walk in the park for you with no challenges.
Life is never a walk in the park. When it is, you should smell the roses because it's glorious.
Yeah.
But no, life is challenging, especially today. I mean, this has got to be one of the toughest times that we're all facing, and I've actually had to be pretty rigorous around developing some morning routines so that my day goes the way I want it to go, because we're really isolated right now. And this is not, my business has never been an easy business. It's always required a lot of effort in terms of marketing, in terms of, getting people's attention. When I started coaching, nobody even knew what a coach was. So I'd have to use the analogy of a sports coach.
Yeah.
Now it seems like everyone's a coach working from home, doing a Zoom meeting, and they've got some expertise. So I've really had to refine that message. It's never been easy. And then, gosh, I've had certainly personal challenges, parenting and raising a family. Those were some of my biggest challenges.
Those can be challenging.
Yes.
Very, very challenging. I know. So you, I guess, what do you think? Um, what are some of the things that you see holding small business owners back from succeeding? Well, yeah. What do you think? What do you think?
I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head with the question. What do you think is holding small,
Yeah.
emphasis small,
Yep.
business owners back?
Yep.
Well, so small thinking holds small businesses back. If you
Yep.
think like a small business, you're going to do things small. You're going to play small.
Yep.
Someone told me the other day, and this is a often repeated phrase in our business when we're talking to people who are trying to play big, which is, do you play to win or do you play not to lose? And I think that for me, in my, like, so you asked about challenges, to be really
Yeah.
vulnerable and honest. I think I've played not to lose most of my adult life.
Yep.
And when I was younger and more idealistic and was involved in starting some companies and trying to make things happen, I played to win. But once I got somewhat of a comfort level, I think maybe once I started consulting, I played not to lose. And I was trying to get my clients, help my clients who were starting to play not to lose also, because they were coming to me because they needed safety and security. And could you develop a business plan so that we do it right? And so you don't want to make a mistake on their dollar, and you don't want them to make a mistake on their dollar. So you play not to lose. So that kind of thinking is, well, it's very reptilian, maybe, in the brain. It
Yeah.
protects you from having anything really bad happen, but you're not going to create a unicorn, which in the
Yeah.
business world today means, like $1 billion valuation company.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not going to create anything really big. And so that thinking small, it's what keeps small businesses, when small. The reason why 96% of all businesses in America are under $1 million in revenue is because a lot of people are just approaching their business with a vision of just like, I'm just going to put food on the table. I just need to make enough money to, support my family. They're
Yep.
not thinking like, I'm going to come up with something that's going to change the world, that's going to innovate, that's going to disrupt. I mean, how many people are thinking like Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Edison, or, very
Yeah.
few of us. So I
You
think that's
know,
the big thing, is that the mindset is huge.
you just nailed it, man. I'm a coach. I'm a
Mhm.
business coach, and about 6 years ago, I don't know if you know who Grant Cardone is, but he's a
Sure.
buddy of mine.
Hmm.
And so I was in Grant's office. It's a long story, but I was down there years ago when I first met him, and he coached me for 3 hours. And one of the things that he said to me is, "What are you hiding from?" And I'm like,
What?
I'm sitting in your office, dude. I'm not hiding from anything."
Yeah.
But the way he explained it is like you don't have a fan page, you don't have this, you're not doing this and this and this on social media, and what are your company goals, what are you trying to achieve, and and it really, this conversation, I thought that I was doing pretty well. I was doing $1 million a year, but I thought, I thought I was doing really well. And but when you're sitting with somebody with a net worth of $100 million, you feel really small if you start comparing balance sheets. So I'll never forget that moment, because it was the moment that my life changed, because all of a sudden the blinders came off and I was like, you know what? There is more available for me as a business owner, as a human being. And so I love what you just said. That is huge. I think that if people say, I never say I own a small business, ever, ever, ever. I don't
Yeah.
do that. I say
Yeah.
I own a business. I'm the CEO, and et cetera. But because it comes down to that, as minuscule as it may seem, it does come down to that mindset, doesn't it?
It really does. And things really shifted for me. Gosh, I'm not really sure when. Maybe it'll come to me in this conversation, but for many years, for 10 years, Ken, I ran this economic development center, and our mission was to support small business people. And one of our funding sources was the Small Business Administration. They funded our SBDC, which is a national network of small business development centers.
Right.
And so, so small business, there was nothing pejorative about small businesses, and especially, by the way, if you knew what the SBA definition of a small business was. And most people don't, and it depends upon the industry. But in some industries, up to $30 million in revenue is a small business.
Wow.
So yeah, go think of it like that's like mind blowing, right?
Wow.
And then some industries would be $5 or $7 million, and it depends, and they had specific criteria to meet their lending programs. But so really, I think in all fairness, like any business that's under maybe 20, $30 million is really a small business still, but nobody wants to think of themselves as small. So at some point in my languaging, somewhere in the 2000, 2005 period, I stopped referring to myself as a small business consultant because I'm 5'9", and that's not small. No. And no, because it doesn't ring well to people. People want to think of themselves as being, of having the potential. And I want, and you want as a coach, to be a stand for people being the largest, biggest, best version of themselves. So why think small?
You're right. It's Napoleon Hill said it. I mean, it all starts in the mind, man. Like and it starts. Let me ask you. It's a rhetorical question, but do you find that most of the problems in a business, we'll just say a business, Joe Ingram, this is my buddy down in Orange County I was talking about. He said he's 6'3", so his business is larger.
Yeah. Hope so, but, Joe. You're 6'3", you better be larger.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But do you find that most of the problems in a business start at the top?
100%. I don't know if this analogy plays very well anymore, but it's like, the fish stinks from the head down. The dog resembles the dog behavior resembles the dog owner and their mindset. And businesses that have problems, like everything starts with you as the owner. And when you can take full responsibility, 100% responsibility for what's happening in your company, then you really take ownership. And that's just what's going to be required for you to be successful. So if you have an employee that's out in the field and he's doing, field work, I don't know, let's say you're doing roofing or construction of some kind, and your field labor is not very good. Well, you know what? That's your responsibility. Your field supervisor or foreman is responsible for having that person on his or her crew. And you hired either the field laborer or the supervisor or foreman or the person above that. I mean, it all comes back to you. Like if you've got bad apples on your cart, like you need to get rid of those bad apples. So the owner's got to take full responsibility, and that is very empowering, not disempowering. It's very empowering, and it allows you to then make changes to the way you want your organization to appear. So
what are some of the things that are stopping these CEOs or these business owners? What are some of the things that you see that are stopping them from I listen, man, I've been there. I've been there where I knew I had a bad employee, or even more than a bad employee. And I ignored it. I knew it was going, I knew it was bad. I knew it was going on, but it wasn't so bad that it was going to put us under. So I just ignored it and thought I'll just throw more money at it. I'll get, maybe if I give them a raise, they'll do better. You know,
Right.
things like that.
So I think the answer to your question, the one that comes to my mind, is our limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
So we believe, or Ken, maybe you believed, well, I'll throw money at it, it'll fix the problem.
Yeah.
Well, it's not going to really matter. It's only one person, and I've got, it's one person out of however many. It's not going to really matter, or, it's not that big a deal. I'll deal with it later, or what stops you from growing big, right? Let's get back to the small versus big, versus or more successful is, well, I don't have the education. Well, I wasn't, nobody showed me. Well, I don't have the knowledge about how to do it. There's a lot of things that can hold us back, that limit, can limit our capabilities. And it's not our capabilities, it's our potential. It's about realizing our potential.
It is.
What is David, the Navy SEAL David Goggins,
love that dude.
So what's his expression? Like, if you think you're at your max capacity, you still have 40% more to go, or something like that.
No, you've only reached 40%.
You only reached 40%.
Yeah.
So that is I like it, David, but that's like non-scientific. I get it. But look, if anyone knows what Navy SEALs have to go through to pass and become a Navy SEAL, that, it's when you're at your breaking point, that's when they're really testing you. And that's when he's saying, like, you can go further, you can do more. So,
he's right. He's right. I had Andy Frisella on the show, who's the CEO of First Form Fitness, and he developed this program called 75 Hard, and it's oh my God, dude, it's like ridiculous. Like you work out twice a day, once has to be outside, 45 minutes each workout, a gallon of water every day, a progress picture every day, 10 pages out of a self-help book every day, and you have to follow a diet with no cheat meals, no cheating, nothing. So like, and you do this 75 days in a row, and if you mess up one single step, you start back at day one. And dear God. And it's like, well, dude, I can work out twice a day. That's no big deal. Right. It's not. It really isn't. You can go for a walk, and that's considered a workout. But dude, doing it at all 5 of those steps every single day consistently for 75 days. I literally listened to Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I listened to it while I was working out, probably half of those 75 days, because I was like, I need to have somebody in my ear screaming at me.
This can't hurt me, right? I can do it. I can do it.
Yeah. So, but I think so. What basically what you are saying, is you found that people are selling themselves short, that they're capable of a lot more than.
Well, I think I think that we're all somewhat conditioned to believe or feel like this is good enough, and this is it. This is all it can be, or I'm happy, and look, that's fine for a lot of people. Look, not everyone's cut out to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone's going to be an Olympic athlete. Not everyone's going to be a Navy SEAL.
Right.
We need all whatever, I don't even know how to, all colors of the rainbow to make a rainbow, right? It just, not everyone can be a bright, white, shining light. Not everyone's a gold medal winner. And so, like, entrepreneurs need managers need employees. Otherwise, everyone would be working for themselves and nobody would be getting anything done, probably. So I think that, it's hard to say where it comes from. Our conditioning, I think, probably is a lot of it. I mean, I did some of my first breakthrough work with Tony Robbins when he was just getting started in the 80s. And I had done already quite a bit of stuff before that. I was in the first Landmark Forum that I walked out of with Werner Erhard. I had done peak performance work. I had done a lot of personal development work. But, having watched Tony in his career, When we were first promoting him, he was doing firewalks with 300 people.
Yeah.
And now they're 30,000 or whatever people, or more. And so he really makes it very clear that he worked at it every single day. He pushed himself. He is constantly testing the limits of his, brainwave, his, physical body. And he makes a lot of sacrifices to do this stuff. Like, frankly, I mean, I looked at his diet to see, okay, what did people say Tony eats? And I thought, like, wow, that's a really strict, regimented diet. And that's not for me. I'm too much of a foodie. I want to enjoy all that life has to offer. I think that's life is so big, just the way you can live it. I mean, I couldn't live that. Like, I think his diet is like living really small. Because in order for him to work at his peak potential, he can't be experimenting with foods and stuff that doesn't know how it's going to hit his body.
Right.
And that's not a knock on him. I'm just saying that if you want to achieve greatness, then you have to get rid of stuff that you're doing that you're not good at, or even that you're good at, so you can just focus on your greatness. And, and in my life, greatness is from being able to do many things and many things well. And so I think everyone's got a different approach. And so, I can't say why small businesses stay small, but I can definitively say that if you want to get your business big, if you want to grow, if you want to be, achieve a peak level of fitness, health, mental, financial, then you need to minimize any other distractions and focus on that one thing.
So. I agree 1,000% with you, man. I think, I can remember back, I don't know, my company was a couple years old. My wife and I had just met and decided to open an office. I decided to go all in on my company instead of working from home. And here, ironically, now we're all working from home. But I remember I had a handful of employees at the time, and this guy, one of my employees, walks in, "Hey boss, there's some guy looking in the windows of your SUV out in the parking lot." And I'm like, "Well, tell him to get the hell out of here." Well, he's like, "Well, he's got it blocked with his tow truck." I was like, "Oh no, this is not good. No bueno." And so I mean, you can't talk a repo guy out of taking your car.
Right.
So it was a humiliating day. I'll never forget that. And I remember feeling so small and insignificant in this world at that moment. And because everybody else was getting paid except for me. And so, what about the people? Because right now, man, over the last, we went from a two week shutdown to flatten the curve to we're in month 8 or 9 now.
Yeah.
And it's gotten a little out of control. What about the people who are suicides have skyrocketed? I mean, it's crazy what's going on in the world. What about those people that are at the end of their rope that are like, I've tried everything. I don't know what else to do. They repoed my car. Electric's getting shut off. Things are really, really bad. What do you say to somebody in a situation like that to kind of maybe help them get through it, understanding that it's going to be okay?
Well, you're asking me because out of a personal curiosity, because this is not anything that I have any professional expertise in. Fortunately, my clients are not at the end of their rope. Like, like, hey, the IRS is coming in 3 days to put the padlocks on the door. Can you help us figure out how to get current on our back payroll taxes? I don't specialize in those situations.
Right.
But I think, it's an act of humanity, and we have to do our best to reach out to our brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, to sons and daughters and extend an olive branch and help them where we can. I mean, there's a fine line, by the way, Ken, between enabling someone and helping someone.
Yeah.
And you have to, is by giving them, so the homeless person that's, sitting on the corner holding a handout, for some money. It's a difficult question. Like, are you enabling that behavior, and what behavior are you enabling? Are you enabling them to go buy drugs and alcohol?
Right.
Or are you helping them to get off the streets? Are you helping them to get a bed and maybe, a leg back into the world? So, I think that unfortunately, one of the greatest ills of our society, and it's not just a capitalist society, I think it's a worldwide problem, but homelessness, mental illness. I think it's particularly bad in this country, particularly the mental illness, that we're not doing what we can to help people, and that we're incarcerating most of those that we don't know what to do with because we closed down a lot of the mental hospitals.
Yeah.
And it's people who are one paycheck away. I mean, they say that 50% or something of Americans, if they got a bill for $500 or more, would be a struggle to figure out how to pay for it. I mean, this is a catastrophic statement about the failures of our society. And you don't want to probably get me started because there's still a bit of an activist back in me. But the distribution of wealth, which is a sociological problem, is pretty extreme. When the top 100 families in this country, or top 100 wealthiest people, have as much money as like the bottom 80%, like that's a problem. I mean, to build a strong society, you need a strong middle class, and it's been eroding, I think.
I don't disagree. I think the middle class is definitely eroding, but I think, you said earlier, talking about taking responsibility, and I'm a high school dropout. I left in 12th grade and said I've made millions and millions of dollars in my life. And I've had many college graduates work for me. I've had people with PhDs work for me that couldn't pour piss out of a boot if the instructions were on the heel. So, I think that one of the things that I look at is Jack Canfield's book, The Success Principles. The very first principle he writes about is take 100% responsibility for everything in your life. And I do agree with you. I think there is a huge disconnect. But I don't think that we punish the wealthy. The wealthy are wealthy because most of them worked at some point, generationally perhaps, but worked their faces off to get there. I think that we need to educate people. And I'm asking your opinion too, but doesn't it start with educating people? Like, man, there's so much more available for you. You don't have to stay stuck in this poor mindset.
I think that, I think that not all of us are born equal. And so, like, some of us are born without we have physical limitations, we have maybe mental health limitations. So I don't know that everyone's capable. Like, it's not a level playing field. If it were, everyone would be given education and everyone could theoretically get better. But there's good and there's evil in the world. There's people who are able and disabled. And so, I think that the job, and this starts to get into a political conversation, but like the job of government is to provide needed goods and services that everyone's going to use, highways, transportation systems, et cetera, water, things like that. But then it's also to provide somewhat of a safety net for those people who just can't seem to lift themselves up. And look, I know welfare has always been criticized as a poor system, the way it's administrated or even designed, but not everyone can make it. and not everyone's got the tools. Not everyone has the access to the education. Um, some of us are born into communities where maybe inner city communities of color where they're just, what's surrounding them is not this thinking of like, hey, here, read a book. It's more like, buy a TV set, and if you have to steal them, steal to get the money to get the TV set, but that's not what makes people better. And so it's, I'm at no person to be able to solve societal ills.
Yeah.
But like everyone, I probably have an opinion on it. But I mean, these are big challenges, and I mean, this is what we ought to be debating. I think, to some degree we are, but it's become very polarized in our country.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like there's a middle anymore. It feels like we have two extremes that are yelling at each other and creating drama in the world. The United States has become like the world stage for everyone to look at and maybe laugh at to some degree.
Well, but I received a news article from somebody this morning. France is falling apart today. Literally, like there's a mass exodus. Yeah, the people in Paris are like, nope, we're out of here. This is crazy. And I think that there's obviously a global pandemic that has nothing to do with coronavirus. There's a global pandemic of some sort of crazy energy that's going on globally. I mean, people are, and it's showing well in the US for sure.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like the scientists versus the it's not the economists, but let's see what Charles Coachman wrote. Our middle class has eroded due to companies outsourcing millions of jobs for higher profits, and our government helped to underwrite those moves. Well, I don't believe in that exactly, but I think that the outsourcing of jobs is, we have a worldwide economy now, and we have outsourced a lot of positions and roles. I don't really buy into the notion that the government has done this. I mean, I use virtual assistants that are in India and Pakistan, and the government hasn't facilitated that in any way. Right. But it's available. It's inexpensive labor. Yeah. And so I guess my argument back to Charles would be, let's become, so that creates opportunities for people to be entrepreneurs here. And, we lead the world in knowledge workers. Peter Drucker wrote about this in The Economist 20 years ago, that we're moving from an industrial age economy where, things are manufactured here to where things are made overseas. And if China, Taiwan, Asia countries, Vietnam, if they can do things cheaper, faster, better, then, it's time for us to rethink like what we're doing. And I get it. Look, people have made enormous investments, capital, equipment, real estate investments. And I know you guys feel it really heavily in Ohio, where you have a very strong manufacturing, belt. And some of those businesses are not that viable anymore. So it seems manufacturing is only for what's immediately needed, more custom, more tailored. But yeah, it's, there are shifts in the economy that are always happening. And if you're not staying on top of those shifts, then, then the spoils go to those who are.
It's kind of one of probably my biggest life purpose is to wake people up to their potential. And I talk about it often. I'm a recovered alcoholic with 18 years sober. But prior to that, thank you. But prior to that, I was it wasn't pretty. And I grew up in an incredibly poor, the white ghetto. And I just decided maybe I was born with a gene or something that, like, because I can't work for somebody else. I've tried.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand. Like at 7 or 8 years old, I was going door to door selling lawn mowing services and figuring out how to make money so I could have the cool clothes like the wealthier kids did. And I don't understand why people don't tap into their greatness. It really does drive me crazy watching people just suffer. And the Buddhists have a saying, and it's this, you know, pain in life is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
Right.
And I love that because we don't have to suffer, man. I think that you're the kind of person, from what I'm reading, maybe not, I don't know, but if shit was hitting the fan in your life and you couldn't pay your bills or things were bad, you would figure something out. You would go cold call, whatever you had to do, I'm sure.
I've been in that position. I've had to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was born of privilege, but there were times in my life where my back was up against the wall. And,
Sure.
and I thank God that I have the response
Yeah.
ability, and I get back to, like, I have mentally, physically, emotionally. I'm really fortunate that I don't have the addict gene. I don't have any particular mental illness. I suffer a little bit from anxiety, which is general, and but that fuels great behavior. I think some of my most successful clients or entrepreneurs have clear ADD or ADHD because it fuels that entrepreneurial spirit. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't know, Ken. When you were 7 or 8, like, where were the other kids, and why weren't they doing something else to hustle up money and make
Right.
ends meet? I mean, I don't know. I just don't know the answer. We're just not all born with the same brain chemistry, maybe, or we're
Yeah.
not wired. I mean, you know, like the alcoholism or whatever the ism was that you were,
Yeah.
afflicted
Alcohol.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, that was that was your blessing and your
Hmm.
curse. And you
Hmm.
had to get over that to get to who you are today.
Yep.
Um,
It's true.
if, otherwise you would have crashed and burned at some point later down the line. And,
Well, and I say that all the time. It's the same thing. Like, it's like, if I do a lot of push-ups, and as a
mhm,
result, I have some guns, right? But like, you can't get the guns without going through the pain. You
right.
have to do the work, and that's the part that I think a lot of people miss, is you've got to put in the work. Like I said, when you've been in that situation, you're like, oh crap.
Yep.
Maybe he didn't say it the way I say it, but maybe he
Yep.
said, oh crap, I gotta find a client that's willing to pay me some money for an exchange of value here. So I think that, dude, what you're doing, I love it, man. Well, why don't you talk a little bit about the book that you wrote too? I'd
Sure.
love to hear it. But it looks like
Sure.
you had something else you wanted to say about what I
Yeah,
was
no,
doing.
I was just gonna say that I think everyone has the opportunity and gets that wake up call. Not
Yeah.
everyone responds to that wake up call.
Yeah.
Um, I just got a text from someone asking, he's congratulating me on my book, and I asked him how he was doing, and he said, I'm recovering from my accident, and I'm working on myself. I'm getting better. I mean, some people have to have near death experiences to recover, and
Yeah.
some people, I always thought, like the great rock and roll players, they all died when they were 27. Jim
Yeah.
Morrison,
Yeah.
Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and it seems like they just played all out, and then they
Died.
they
Yeah.
died,
Yeah.
but they gave it their best, and we're still living and loving and thinking like what legends they were. So they
Right.
left a legacy. So I
Yeah.
guess this is
Yeah.
my legacy. Is I've written a book. It's called Disruptive Successor. It's a guide to driving growth in your family's business, and I am somewhat obsessed with family business. I was the product of a very large, successful men's clothing business based in Philadelphia and New York City. My family built it up. Everyone in the family was employed in it. I was never employed in it because it was sold and before I was really in my 20s and could have joined it. I think it would have been a great experience had I been able to participate in that business. It would have been a fourth generation family business. So about 30 years ago, I happened upon, my calling, which was to start consulting entrepreneurs. Most of them were family businesses. And what I've done with this book is I've taken the knowledge that I've gathered over the past 20 or maybe 30 years, put it into a book that was written for next generation leaders of a family business who want to 2 to 10x the business and need help with the succession planning, the transfer of ownership and leadership from the founder to the next gen leader. And I give them basically a playbook for how to scale up that business. And so that's my passion. And I think that'll lead me into working with more multi-generational families as well, and passing the torch. Because for those of you who are not aware, family businesses are responsible for 2/3 of the GDP in this country. They employ close to 70% of all employees in this country. So it's, families grow faster than businesses, someone said to me last night, and family businesses are like the dominant force. And don't be fooled by thinking like all those public companies are not family businesses. About 1/3 of them are still family owned or controlled. So yeah, interesting, great opportunity, really excited about it. Disruptive Successor, you can go to my website, Disruptive Successor, download a chapter, buy the book. It links to
the
Amazon.
Goldhill group isn't where they go?
You can go to the Goldhill group, you'll find the book there, or you can find the book at disruptivesuccessor.com, either place.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I was being slick, putting up your
yeah. Well, there's a link to the book there, and it'll take you to that webpage.
Oh yeah, here I just found it. Just found it. I'll put that up instead. How about that?
Perfect.
Yeah. So what are for anybody watching right now that owns a business, small or otherwise, what are some final words of wisdom or advice that you would share with them that could dramatically impact their life?
Well, so I'm looking at this new I'm going to quote from my screensaver right here, because I just have a picture of myself. Looks like yours. I'm standing on, I guess, what is 6th Avenue in Manhattan, and I'm superimposed. I'm as tall as the buildings, and I'm looking at you, and I'm saying, what would your business be if you could dominate your industry? Who would you be? Who would you have to become? And if you wanted to dominate your industry, dominate your market, dominate whatever it is, your neighborhood, your geography that you're playing in, like, who do you have to become to be that person and to have that business? And start thinking along those lines. Start thinking big, and it'll elevate you. It'll elevate your thinking. It'll elevate the people that you surround yourself with, and it'll elevate your vibration, your energy level. It'll probably improve your physicality and your strength. So who would you be if you were running a business that was dominating your industry, your market, and become that person?
Love it. I love it. Jonathan, thank you for coming on and sharing your story, your wisdom, your insights. Everybody go over to disruptivesuccessor.com. It's scrolling across the bottom there, and grab a copy of Jonathan's book. I'm sure it's on Amazon, right?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. I appreciate you coming on. Is there a place on social media that you're most active?
I'm most active on LinkedIn and Jonathan Goldhill, the Goldhill Group. Yeah, and you can always direct message me there, and I'm pretty quick to respond usually.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, stay with me. I'm gonna end the live stream, but if you would stay with me for a minute, we can chat and finish up. Thank you to everybody who's been on here and watched and shared this out. Thank you for any shares that we got. I appreciate that greatly. So, Jonathan, thank you so much, and you have a fantastic weekend.
Thanks, Ken.
All right, we'll see you guys later.